call our meeting to order tonight. Renata, if you would do the roll call, please.
Evans. Here. Ettinger. Here. McEvers.
Here.
Deacon.
Present.
Miller. Here. English.
Here.
Let's rise for the invocation. We have Pastor Stuart Bryan with the Trinity Church with us tonight.
Thank you for having me. Let's pray. Almighty and everlasting God, all we have and all we are gifts from you. We are thankful for the many things that you have given us, that you have created all things, and that everything that exists has its being from you. You formed the sun, the moon, and the stars, and you fashioned the dry land and the seas, and you made fish to sport about in the waters and animals to walk upon the face of the earth. And as the pinnacle of your work, you created mankind in your very image. You gave us dominion over the earth, to harness its resources, to care for its creatures, to rule over it in the fear of you. And as these men and women fulfill their part in that ruling, grant them grace to imitate the Lord Jesus Christ, who did not come to be served, but to serve. And grant them wisdom to rule well, that their decisions would uphold what is true and good and beautiful in our community. All this we ask in the name of Jesus and by the power of your Spirit. Amen.
Amen. Woody, lead us in the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I do believe that we have an amendment to tonight's agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to make a motion to add executive session pursuant to Idaho Code 74-206 to acquire an interest in real property which is not owned by a public agency due to the fact that it was unknown at the time that the agenda was set.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that will be added to the end there. Move on to presentations. Skateboard park update. Nathan Baker is here to give us an update on the skate park. I did want to tell you, Nathan, that Woody has volunteered. He is going to do the first skate at the new skateboard park. So we could sell tickets to that. So just keep that in mind, that he's offered to do the very first skate.
We have as many pillows as we need to keep you safe, Woody.
Helmets, pads,
Squeegees.
My name is
How's
Nathan
our
Baker.
insurance coverage? We're deep.
So, my name is Nathan Baker. Most of the skate park users call me Opie. Down there, everybody calls me Opie. We're going to tell you guys a little bit about the banquet we have coming up. We've got a video to show you about why we're doing what we do and what skate parks can help benefit the community with. Okay, so first and foremost, we want to let everybody know how much we appreciate, Ignite CDA, the City of Coeur d'Alene, the council, and especially the Parks Department, really putting forth funding and effort for this park project to happen. And we know that there's a lot of people in the community who also support this project and who would like to contribute and add to what's already happening to the project. So we want to give them an opportunity to do so. The number one thing we hear from most people when we bring up the skate park is, well, I don't skate, but I support the skate park. And they may not want to come down to the park and eat a hot dog and watch a skate contest. So we wanted to create an avenue for them to come and take part and to have a good evening and contribute to the skate park fund. So, the words black tie optional and skateboarding don't often get heard in the same conversation. But come February 17th, they're going to go hand in hand. So, we do have tickets on sale. The sales will close on the 10th of February, and the event will be held down at the Coeur d'Alene Resort on February 17th at 6 p.m. We'll have food, drinks, music, and our guest speaker is a skateboarding legend, but more importantly, he's a great example of the development of a skateboarder, from a skater kid to an active skateboard and skate park advocate, who really will speak to the merits of why a community can be benefited from skateboarding and a skate park. We'll have auction items, and we're going to have some of those normal things that you see at a benefit banquet. We will have a little bit of skateboarding. We don't get to be too radical in the Coeur d'Alene Resort, but it'll be the first time anybody's skated in that resort with permission, I can guarantee you. So we would love any skate park supporters to come out and share an evening of fun and help add to the fund. If you'd like to attend, go to the CDA Skate Park website, which is CDASK8, the number, PRK.com. And if you can't attend and you'd like to donate, you can go to the website as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Nathan. Appreciate it. Next up on the list is the Ignite CDA Annual Report. We have Tony Burns with us tonight. Welcome, Tony.
Good evening, Mayor Council. It's a pleasure to be here tonight on behalf of the Ignite CDA Board of Commissioners to share with you what we've been up to and also kind of share an overview for the general public about what we are and what we do. First off, Ignite CDA, we're the city's redevelopment agency. We were formed by Mayor Council in 1997. We have two districts. Our Lake District, established in 97, and sunsets in 4 years. And our River District was established in 03 and sunsets in 10 years. So geographically, this is kind of the part of the world we are in Coeur d'Alene. This one's not going to work here, okay? So just kind of give you bearings. This is McEwen Park. This is 4th Street up to Harrison. Our districts run out along Northwest Boulevard. This is NIC over here. Lowe's is up here. The Crop Center's right about there. Riverstone and Mill River is out there along the river. A little closer look, looking down, this is our Lake District, once again, the downtown area, the midtown area, up Northwest Boulevard, up to I-90. This district sunsets in 4 years. And then our River District is out along the river. This is Riverstone Park, Saltese Way, and the Mill River US Bank area. Our vision and mission, our vision is to be a catalyst for positive change. We focus on economic prosperity, quality housing, and employment opportunities. Our mission is to bring together resources for healthy neighborhoods, a vibrant central city, a strong regional economy, superior public open spaces, quality jobs, and housing for all. I work for a great board. Scott Hoskins is our chair. Olivia Metz is our vice chair. Dana Goodlander, Brad Jordan, Mick Garman, Steve Widmeyer, Jim Chapkus, Sarah Garcia, and Dan English are the current board members. We had 2 retirees this past year, Denny Davis and Justin Druffel. Denny, he served on the board for 12 years and also served as chairman. I can't say enough about what Mr. Davis brought to the board. He was a great leader in the community. You can read, he helped on the community achieve great success on many fronts, including economic, quality of life, and sense of place. He was very instrumental in our success. Commissioner Druffel retired after 6 years on the board. As shared with in regards to Mr. Davis, Mr. Druffel also brought great leadership and vision to our board, and he was greatly appreciated on this time. And we had 3 new members join us for in 2017. We had Commissioners Chapkus, English, and Garcia join the board, and they bring a great talent set to the board. Just like to update you on some of our initiatives and give you a little overview of what we've been up to lately. Four Corner Master Plan. Just to refresh everybody's memory on the Four Corner Master Plan, the area, the geographic area starts down here at Independence Point, goes all the way up to Belle Reeve. That's a lot of area and encompasses mainly the BLM lease area. So in 2016, Ignite CDA partnered with the city and other stakeholders to kind of get the first element of the Four Corners done. This was the Fork Grounds Drive area where the carousel is, some additional parking along Northwest Boulevard and down here by the park. Then in 2017, we started on the second element along the Four Corner Master Plan along the Northwest Boulevard corridor, contributing $1.5 million to the creation of more public space, the future skateboard park area, and realignment and redevelopment of McEwen Field. Higher Education Campus Initiative, to refresh everybody's memory, back in 2009 or 2010, NIC acquired the old DeArmond Mill site, which is depicted here, right next to the wonderful wastewater facility. Ignite CDA partnered with the institution to see on the side of the slide in the amount of $5.4 million to develop the roadway infrastructure, the roundabouts, and 2 traffic intersections, one at River and one at Hubbard, and also the creation of the trail behind the wastewater treatment plant along the Spokane River. Did some graphic pictures, some roundabouts, roadways, and the new trail along the river. The next element of the higher education campus partnership that we're working on is the creation of the NICE facility, the North Idaho Collaborative Education Facility. $8.2 million construction cost. We're going to partner with the institutions you see on the screen in the amount of $2.5 million. The bids are open this month, with occupancy in the summer of 2019. And in general, this is location of where it will be. These buildings will be demolished, and not quite sure the time frame on that, but once the bids are let, I'm sure NIC will be getting after it. Downtown parking facility. I think you're all very familiar with what's going on now. You probably heard it more than saw it here recently. The area that is under construction is this area in blue, which is on the north side of the alley from the old Federal Building. Ignite owned these 3 buildings that have been demolished. The city owned the old surface parking lot that's been demolished, and we're coming out of the ground as we speak. This is what it will look like. T.L. Riviere is the contractor. The project cost is $7.3 million, 4 levels, 360 spaces, and 240 calendar days for construction. So we are thinking with the guideline, the timeline they just gave us, that they're shooting for September 12th for project completion. Hopefully they'll go quicker because I think the site is a little easier than they thought, and the weather has been fantastic to work in. Atlas Mill Site. You are very all well aware of this initiative. The agency is looking to define its role in partnership with the city and other stakeholders for the acquisition of a portion of the old Atlas Mill Site area by the city. That is the Bad Axe area that's kind of depicted here. The areas in red are owned by Lance Douglas, a developer out of Spokane. This is about 3 acres, and I think this is a little over 20 acres. To help with the initiative, the Ignite CDA has engaged a consultant team comprised of Welchcomber Engineers, Heartland, and GGL Architects, are based out of Seattle. They are going to help us with the planning initiative to kind of get the community squared away and dialed in as we get into the spring months, and then we'll use that outcome to put into our urban renewal plans that will help us grow our presence out in this area that you see on the screen. Just refresh everybody's memory on the redevelopment initiatives. Just kind of start out with the old Riverstone. I always like showing these slides. People forget what we had not too long ago, 1990, looking down at the old mill site. That was out here, as well as a shot of the old Central Premix pit. 2004, the pit is still there. And today, this is where the pit was. And, you know, Barney's is out there, and a lot of development. The Riverstone Park and Pond is out there. The old mill site is gone. Here's the cinemas. And a lot of these pads on this photo are starting to get built in. This is where the new hotel's going in right here. There's new development down here. There's more development all throughout here. So this is going to be pretty filled up pretty quick. I just wanted to refresh everybody's memory also about how our reimbursement agreements work. And I'll just use the red area as an example. This was back in 2001. The developer came to the board and said, I would like to have some public help to take this old brownfield site and turn it into a mixed-use play. Vision that I have, and the board said, great, what do you need? He says, well, I'd like to have $1.5 million of public help to put in infrastructure. And the board said, that's great, we agree to that, but here's the deal, that you go ahead and build it and pay for it, and we will reimburse you with property taxes generated by your development, the area in red. If your development does not generate sufficient property taxes to pay back that debt, we do not pay it back, it's on you. It's the risk is on the developer, and that's the way our reimbursement agreements work. That project paid off well. The $1.5 million was paid back from property taxes generated solely from that area in red. Mill River is another example of one of our reimbursement agreements. There's a photo of the old mill site. This is what it looks like now. U.S. Bank Service Center is here, Mill River Development here, and the Mill River Johnson Park area is right there. Midtown. This is a property ownership footprint that we have in Midtown. Ignite owns the area in red. The area in blue is owned by the housing company out of Boise. These are two public parking surface lots in Midtown. This is an antique store building that we own, and then these areas here are bare land parcels now are green space. Recently, the board went out for an RFP seeking developers to partner with us on redevelopment of this building and the green space lots. We only received one proposal that the board rejected because it didn't meet the qualifications for the request. And so now a team has been formed, an ad hoc committee, to kind of see what the next step will be for the Midtown property. Infill partnership project across the street from here, the Lake Apartments. That's what it looked like before, the old Shady Pines. That's what's coming out of the ground eventually. The footings look to be in for most of it, and be starting to see some vertical action here pretty quick. We are in a partnership role with that. Once again, this will be a reimbursement agreement. We agreed to fund $568,000 in public improvements with the same model that we use all the time, is that the developer pays for it up front. We reimburse them over time with property taxes generated solely from that project. These guys know that they're a little late in the game. They're coming out of the ground in 2018. Our district expires in 2021. We get our last revenue check in 2022, and then if they haven't been paid back in that time frame, then we don't owe them any more money, and no one does. No one owes them any money. The Collaborate project on Northwest Boulevard is still stagnant. This is what it was supposed to be. We have a pending partnership role in that also, but with the inactivity, I'm not quite sure if that one will materialize anytime soon. So that one's still kind of up in the air. Additional past partnership projects, you know many of these: McEwen Park, Kroc Center, McEwen Terrace, Chamber of Commerce Building, Ice Plant Townhomes, Parkside, this wonderful library that we're in right now. Northwest Place, we have the Sorensen Magnet School, Mill River Seniors, and Circuit at Saltese. So a lot of great projects. Performing Arts Center feasibility study. This is a new one. It's going to be underway here shortly. The Ignite board, in partnership with Coeur d'Alene 2030, has engaged the services of HVS Convention, Sports, and Entertainment Facilities Consulting out of Chicago for a fee of $55,250 to conduct the feasibility study. There is an optional $7,500 donor survey, addendum to that contract should the board want to engage that. It's a 12-week study time frame, and their start date is February 26th. So this one will be up and running pretty quick, and we'll have a quick turnaround time about the feasibility of this initiative. Saltese waiver revitalization. As you recall, our project area is between these two red lines out here to the great city of Hutter. It's gone along very well. It's mostly complete. Major portions were completed in 2017, and we'll just kind of put the icing on the cake in 2018 with another layer of asphalt overlay and landscaping and irrigation and the other elements for the landscaping part of the project. Urban Land Institute, we are continuing to be a sponsor of the ULI events as they make their way to Coeur d'Alene. We are still having a good turnout for them, and we are continuing to be a sponsor. And Coeur d'Alene Downtown Association, we're proud to be a partner with the Coeur d'Alene Downtown Association helping with their event through an event contract that we have each year with them. They do a stellar job, with their most recent success being the mac and cheese event, if some of you were able to see that. Our priorities, 2017 looking forward, is education. We're still focusing on education as an economic driver in the community. We're focusing on the higher education campus, as you noted before, with the collaborative education facility. Housing, we still want to play a key role with the city to achieve its vision for housing in the community by pursuing opportunities in both districts as they come along. Public space, we think, is very critical to the success of a community, and we're looking forward to continuing to find other opportunities to create public space where it is feasible and rational and productive. As we looked at one opportunity, this is the Four Corner Master Plan area, and you see the area in brown is the BLM lease area, and you kind of see the area in red is the only area we've touched so far. So there's a lot more opportunities for public space development along Northwest Boulevard. Job retention, job creation, critical for the success of our community, and we look to partner with these organizations that you see on the screen to kind of continue to not only bring jobs here, but hopefully retain jobs in our community. On that front, we have the opportunity at Atlas Mill site. We'll see if there's any potential for job creation out in that area, but also on the other side of Southeast Way with our new Southeast Way revitalization effort, along with the new sewer line that was put in. We're hoping to see some things pop in the area between Southeast Way and I-90. This is the Frontier Ice Arena. This area in here we think is kind of ripe for development, and we hope to see something start percolating in that area. Public parking, we'll continue our efforts to work with the other stakeholders to help rationalize public parking opportunities in our districts. Midtown, we'll continue efforts with the city and the Midtown property owners and Midtown businesses and other stakeholders to help create value in that part of town, as well as the same for the downtown. As our district closes down, we only have 4 years left, so we're kind of running out of time, but we do have some strategic initiatives that we'd like to see bring to fruition, and we are open to create as much value as we can in that area. With that, be happy to entertain any questions.
Thank you, Tony. Any council member have a question for Tony? It's a quiet group here tonight, I guess.
Excellent.
Yep, thank you very much, appreciate it. We'll move on to the consent calendar.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move for approval of the consent calendar, including Resolution 18-005.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please, Renata.
English,
Aye.
Eddinger,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
McEvers,
Yes.
Gookin.
Yep.
Motion carried. Now is the time for public comment. Anyone wishing to come up and address the council shall have 3 minutes to do so on a topic of city business. Anyone wishing to come forward and address the council? Come on up.
My name is Jesse Warburton. I go by the name of Brother Music. I addressed you about a month ago on the topic of busking, changing the ordinances for public music. I'll try to be real quick here because I know I only have 3 minutes. I want to describe what happened on Saturday. The weather was warming. I went downtown, as I did all last summer, was unharassed and started playing my music. Kids were dancing, families were dancing, they did the hokey pokey. I got some shoulder hugs and little girls behind the glass at the Peter Pit giving me a kiss. It was beautiful. It was just like it happened last summer, until an officer showed up. And then he made the point that I was breaking the law, and I said, well, what's this about? And he said, there was a complaint. I said, why can't you just have the complainer come down here and meet you and me, and we'll talk about what they're complaining about? Oh, we don't do that. We just come in here to talk to you. Took me to his vehicle. We spent a good 30 minutes, him pretty much lecturing me on the law and basically calling my 55 years of developing music noise. and that I had no right to do it. I can only argue so much with an officer in his office, which is his vehicle, so I'll try to move on. I was in Sandpoint a couple of years ago, and a couple older women came up to me, said, "There you are." They said, "We thought you'd be playing today out on the street." I said, "No, I'm not playing today. We drove down from Canada." I'm not saying they drove down to see me, but I could have been on their list of things. That's just a point to show that people do go out of their way to see street music in America. Not here yet, but they do. If you, as a counselor, mayor and the councilors, if you decide to change the ordinances, and I've read the ordinances, I have a copy back there, it does not feel like Coeur d'Alene at all. I read the whole thing. The only thing I saw there that possibly where I might fit in is under I, where it designates that the city administrator or parks director or his designees could allow, in association with a special event or other permitted event or activity, what I'm doing is an activity. Some people think it contributes to the downtown. So I guess I could fit into that with permission from the ones that I named, the city. But I'd have to go through a process of seeing if that's possible. If you do change the ordinances and permit busking, it's not going to be an overnight change for Coeur d'Alene unless you want it to be. And I would suggest that I would want it to be. I would suggest the first annual Coeur d'Alene busking celebration sometime in May or June, in which you let everyone know that the laws have changed and buskers are now welcome. Make it plain and clear that there's a new downtown musical creative activity. Thanks.
I wanted to add something, though, is that you were here last time at the last council meeting, and when we talked about amplified music.
Yes.
So you understood that amplified music was not allowed downtown, right?
Yeah, I hadn't read the ordinance yet.
But you understood that there was no amplified music.
Yes.
And this last Saturday, you chose to use amplified music.
I didn't even think about it. I
Well,
thought about all last summer.
So what you have to understand is that the police officer that came and responded to you, his job is to uphold the law.
That's
And the
what he said,
law
yeah.
is not to have amplified music. Our job, my job, the council's job, is to adhere to those laws, right? So we currently have a law that does not allow amplified music. So you're going to have to abide by that. It's not like we were doing anything wrong, or the police officer was doing anything wrong, or anybody that was complaining was doing anything wrong. Amplified music isn't allowed, right? So I just wanted to make that clear. The last time you were here, we had told you that we had talked about, our Arts Commission had talked about busking, and it was going to go through the Arts Commission. And Sam, you might just briefly touch on that a little bit, that we talked about last time.
Yeah, to reiterate that, number one, busking is not prohibited in the city of Coeur d'Alene. We really are addressing the amplification issue. We do have a subcommittee on the Arts Commission known as the Performing Arts Subcommittee, and we are going to be working really hard to build a kind of coalition partnership with local law enforcement, Arts Commission staff, liaison, Arts Commission members, musicians, and the Downtown Association and legal to start the discussion so that everyone's aware of kind of what the rules actually are, or what we can and can't do, and build something that fits Coeur d'Alene the best. We really want to make sure that we're respecting the livelihoods of our downtown businesses and that they're supportive of it, and also respecting the First Amendment rights of musicians to perform. So we're looking at it as an opportunity, and we're getting ready to start that process here right now.
Right. So that's the same message that we had last time, that we're looking into it. But amplified music is still not allowed. So, and you're clear on that now.
Yeah, I am, but I wish I had an understanding as to how fast this is going to move, because I'm not in my younger years, and I only have so many seasons left to experience what I experienced last summer, which was the paradise for a musician like me. And if it is going to be a long process, I'd sure like to find out, because there are places that would welcome me. I had people from California tell me, go to California, they'll love you.
Well, this is government, right? Nothing
Pardon?
happens, this is government, nothing happens quickly in government. We're going to certainly take a look at it. But again, getting back to the amplification, I seriously doubt that anything that's going to add to whatever we're going to do in busking is going to include amplification. It probably won't.
Okay,
So-
well, you won't get buskers downtown without amplification.
Well,
Because-
there won't be, because there are plenty of people that they don't want amplified music. They're okay with having musicians down there that can entertain in their area that they're at, but they don't want the amplification. So we have to be respectful of everybody.
Yeah, if buskers don't have the opportunity of making a few bucks in their little guitar case or basket, and that's why you don't see very many buskers downtown. This Coeur d'Alene could be an amazing place for downtown music. It's trying to be an arts center, and there's art everywhere, but there's not a lot of music.
So anyway, I just wanted to be clear that you understood what the current,
I
what the
understand
current
that.
ordinance
And
is.
you're clear in saying that probably any change in the busking rules will not bring about amplified music. That's good, because that's an indication for me to leave the area. Because I am an amplified musician, and I've developed 55 years of what I do, and a lot of people appreciate it.
Well, what I'm telling you is that from my perspective and the people that I've talked to, now, this is the body that makes the decision, right? But I would not bank on amplified music.
Okay?
Okay.
Well, I come from Sandpoint, and it only took 2 months for them to change the ordinance there, and they're glad they did. So,
Okay, all right.
thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else wishing to give public comment at this time? Okay, we'll move on to announcements. Any member of the council have an announcement? Kiki?
I just wanted to remind council that tomorrow, there will be a report directly after, well, Sam, I won't say directly after, but the Atlas Core Vision Group meeting is convening tomorrow night to gather the beginning of the first community input on what's happening to move forward. There's information about that at cdaid.org, and there'll be information directly following, so the community knows what occurred and what the next steps will be.
Okay, 5:30 here tomorrow, correct? Thank you. Anyone else, member of the council, have an announcement? I have some appointments. I would like to appoint Jamie Lynn Morgan to the PED Bike Committee, Virginia Tate to the Park and Rec Commission, and Bob Halleck and Keith Jones to the Urban Forestry Committee.
So move.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Move on to other business. We have resolution number 18-006, bid award and agreement with United Painting Idaho LLC for the industrial standpipe recoating project. We have Kyle, Assistant Water Superintendent. Welcome, Kyle.
Welcome, council. Thanks for having me. Got a short presentation for you here. All right, I bring before you the bids for the approved tank recoating. A little bit of history on the industrial standpipe. The industrial standpipe was built in 2001, finished in 2002 for just over $1.2 million. The tank is roughly 154 feet tall, just behind the Prairie Standpipe, which is a little over 160 feet tall, reported the tallest tank in the U.S., maybe the world. We haven't had any disputes on that yet. Here's an example of the United Painting Idaho LLC's work. They don't have a lot of experience, but their price came back very, very reasonable, roughly $25,000 less than the last paint company that we had that painted Prairie. The industrial standpipe condition, we've got quite a bit of graffiti on the top. I did the best I could showing some pictures of the aerials without too much profanity or negative pictures. We've got some damage on the side of the tank from previous contractor cell phone companies with brackets on the side of the tank. We don't allow any welding on the tank, so they use an epoxy glue. When that was removed, there was some damage done on the tank, as you can see from the pictures. It's not easily repaired or patched. With that and the UV damage on the tank, we're just requesting that we can proceed with the $91,160 to the lowest responsive bidder. Any questions?
Questions for Kyle? Woody?
I had a couple. I think we talked, Kyle, about the
Yes, sir.
fact that it was supposed to be 25-year paint, but it only made 18 years. So you described it mostly as the damage and
Correct.
things. So
Yes.
the paint lasts, but the conditions change.
Correct. Once the paint is broken and it starts to rust, it starts to create a problem underneath the paint and just spreads, and there's not a good way to repair it without removing it completely and repainting it. So we stretch it out as long as we can. We do have some repair spots that we can reach on the tank with our equipment, but the rest of it on the side from the damage from the contractors is an area where we can't reach with our equipment.
Okay, thank you.
You betcha.
Any other questions for Kyle? Kiki?
Kyle, I just had, because of the damage from the contractors and because of the vandalism, which is kind of surprising given the height of this, do you have any plans in place to stop that from occurring?
We have, the whole facility is encircled in chain link fence and has barbed wire over the top. For somebody to climb the tank, they'd have to stand on somebody's shoulders, climb the outside of the tank for 40 feet before they can get on the platform to get inside the safety cage to climb to the top of the tank where they did the damage. We have in place where we're putting cameras up or looking at putting cameras up, but to do much more than that, it's fairly difficult. I mean, they're going above and beyond to get up on top of this tank.
Thank you.
You betcha.
Any other questions? If not, we would be looking for council action.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move to approve Resolution 18006 and approving bid award and agreement with United Painting LLC for the industrial standpipe recoating project.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? Roll call, please, Renata.
Eddinger,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
McEvers.
Yes.
Gookin,
Aye.
English.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you.
Now we will move on to resolution number 18-007, agreement with North Idaho College for Memorial Field and the Four Corners BLM Master Plan. Mike Gridley.
Good evening. Give me a minute, and I'll find a picture for you here. If Sam will tell me where our presentations. I think we need, get a file a complaint, these things need to be taller. I think. It's, that was one thing today. Yeah, let's try this guy. This one. Voila. Sure. I don't know if that's covered under protective acts, but tall people need help too. This is an agreement that, I don't know if council has been party to the discussions, but we've had discussions with NIC over the years about their adjoining property. NIC owns the property that used to be the Robin Hood Campground. As Mr. Burns referenced, this property in red is part of our BLM lease property that is covered by the master plan, Four Corners master plan. It includes the blue building, the warehouse building here that is a former storage building and is not really being used now. The NIC would like to continue to develop their campus adjacent to this property, while the city now has that property under lease, the property surrounded in red. The discussions with NIC has had them say they would like to contribute money to help improve that BLM property, and they are willing to contribute the $200,000 plus that will take to build the trail and other public improvements along here. So it will connect from River to Hubbard, from here to here. And the cost of the estimated cost of improvements are about $200,000. So they've agreed to pay for that. They've agreed to contribute to the demolition cost of the blue building, the warehouse building. So that will be done and that will be removed. And then, as part of their use of public space, they've used Memorial Field for their softball program for a long time. And so they've agreed to contribute $150,000 to the city for the renovation of the Memorial Park field. So they've offered to contribute $378,000 to the city for those two projects. What they would like to see in return is that if the city has the property conveyed to us, that they would eventually be able to own the property in the rectangle there. That would require an act of Congress. It would be subject to a conveyance like we have, which is a recreation, under the Recreation and Public Purposes Act. So I think their main interest is to always have some kind of buffer, always have some kind of barrier between Northwest Boulevard and their expanding campus. As part of the agreement, we've also said that as long as the city owns the property, if they do want to build something on their property, that they could consider this property theirs for purpose of setbacks, or we would waive any setbacks. So rather than having to set back a building 10 or 20 feet from the property line, they could build right up to the property line. It's kind of it in a nutshell. We've been talking to them for some period of time, and this is the proposal that we've negotiated.
Mike, a question is that the rules set forth in the lease with BLM states that that property has to go with whatever the master plan was that we submitted. And
Right.
according to that master plan that we submitted, it was for outdoor public recreation use
Right.
along that corridor. It remains that today. It will remain as long as that lease is in place. And even if the property, my understanding is that even if the property ownership is transferred, that restriction still is placed on that property.
That would be really up to Congress, but yes, that's the tip. Transfers like this, if they are not done under the Recreation and Public Purposes Act, then it becomes you have to pay fair market value. So if if Congress said, look, we'll transfer it to you, and you said, okay, I want it, but I don't want to use it for recreation, you'd have to pay fair market value for it. But you're correct that it is covered with those restrictions now, and absent some changing by Congress, it would be covered in the future.
Right.
By any future users.
Okay. Questions for Mike? Dan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I just want to follow up with that. So if the land does get conveyed back to us, Congress does have the option to say, basically do whatever with it. But, I mean, they could, theoretically. So it could come back to us and we could sell it, do something with it.
Well, in talking to our elected representatives and the legislative representatives and the BLM representatives, the federal government representatives, Congress is going to ask, well, why should we give you this property? What are you going to do with it? And they're very cautious about it, because they don't want to do something that's going to make a whole bunch of people mad. And
Too late.
they're politicians. So so if it did come to that in the future, it would have to be sold to our representative, Congress, to give it in fee for something other than recreation.
Yeah.
I think that's a fairly big ask.
That's my concern, because, I mean, we did all the planning, and we said this would be open space, we have the master plan, people loved it, we were really transparent with that, and I would hate to give away some of it. I mean, the college is another government agency, but still, if it's zoned C-17, theoretically, someone down the road could do something with it if it was, free and clear on the title. They could sell it, they could develop things on it. It has that potential.
Well, Council, council member, council could, when they convey it, you can put whatever restrictions you want to on it. So you can convey it in fee to somebody with a deed restriction saying it cannot be used for this or it can be used for that. But what I'm saying is to get to that point, it's going to take a council, Coeur d'Alene City Council, supporting the transfer or gift from the federal government. And again, they're going to want to know, well, what are you going to use it for, and may put their own restrictions on it. So it's an
question-
uphill.
So, and that's good to know, I like that. The question, though, is this not, does this agreement not transfer the property? Because it basically says that we will, in exchange for the use and ultimate transfer of the property, receive the money. So are we not transferring it now?
No, because we don't have the ability to do that. I mean, under the lease, we can keep it and use it under the Recreation Public Purposes Act, and use it consistent. It has to be used consistent with the master plan that we've done at Four Corners. But no, we can't convey the property, because it's not given, it hasn't been given to us.
But even though the language of this agreement says that we will ultimately transfer it, wouldn't that be if we didn't do it? Wouldn't the college come back to us and sue us because we're in breach of contract?
Well, again, we can work to try and get the property in our hands in a manner that would let us transfer it. But when you transfer it, there's the legal restrictions you could put on it, saying, we're transferring it, but it must remain open space. We're transferring it, it must remain this or that. And second, the college is putting in $200,000 to build improvements
Right.
that you're suggesting would then be ripped out and, it's sold to somebody else. So that's possible.
I know, I'm just exploring theoretical possibilities because I think the public was very supportive of having the open space in this channel go through there. And so I want to make sure, if anyone's watching and they have a concern and they, like I did when I first read this, and I talked about it with the mayor today, and I just want to make sure that this is, that our vision for this doesn't get interrupted. And I know NIC has talked about, at one point in time, they were going to put in a soccer field, but they couldn't fit it in because it extended out into the BLM property. So I thought, well, maybe that's what they're going to do here, is they can put in their soccer field then, because that's a recreational use. And that really wouldn't bother me much, because it's still going to theoretically be open space. But they could do stuff like that theoretically. I mean, that's kind of like building up to the property line, and we'd have to approve that still, right?
Yes, we're saying, okay, you can build up to the property line, you can do something on your property and not be subject to the setbacks or other limitations. I think, in my understanding, and perhaps the mayor has had other discussions, but my understanding is they want a buffer. They've built nice entryway signs, they want to landscape it, they want to support what we're doing with the master plan and the trail and everything. On their side of it, they would like to ensure at some level that we don't turn around and go, hey, we're going to sell it to Starbucks or somebody. So I think there's kind of two sides to it.
And it's good to hear, and I hope the public who's concerned about this is watching and understands that we're doing our job up here, because it's, again, I like this. I don't want it to go sideways, especially, and down the road. I mean, we can't control, we don't know when Congress is going to act, and that's probably a good thing. But, I mean, theoretically, 20, 30 years down the road, they could finally say, okay, you guys are cool, you guys are good with it, and then, but we don't know who's going to be here then, so.
Well, hopefully it's people elected by the majority of the voters are sitting here, so we'll be happy.
Other questions for?
Ron will still be here, but.
Ron will be here.
Other questions for Mike? Amy?
So I have a follow-up question to Dan's. So the trail will remain protected. Let's say there is an act of Congress and the land goes to NIC. We can still protect the trail when we actually do the transfer of the land.
Sure. Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so there's an opportunity to make whatever conditions.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure.
Yes.
Wood?
So right now, we are doing the maintenance on there. Will that stay the same, or will NIC take over some of that?
I talked to Bill Greenwood, our Parks Director, about that, and, maintenance for us on this kind of property is not a big thing in his mind. So I think he would be willing to take it on. It's something that we haven't really pinned down, but it was not an issue for him as far as taking it on.
Thanks.
Other questions for Mike? If not, we'd be looking for council action. Anyone?
I move for the approval of Resolution 18-007, approving the agreement with North Idaho College.
We have a motion.
Memorial Field in the Four Corners BLM Master Plan.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion?
A couple of things. The blue building I thought would be great for bow and arrow Robin Hood kids to be able to shoot indoors because there's nothing indoors. I guess there doesn't seem to be much value to anybody but me and my bow and arrow kids for the building.
We have shopped that around, Parks and Rec. NIC had some interest in retaining it, but it has to be open to the public. And so NIC, you pay and enroll there to use, it's just for students. And so I'm not aware of any use, even storage, or it'd be nice if we could pick it up and move it
Right,
from its
yeah, it's a
present
big
location,
building.
but there's
I guess
nobody-
when I looked at the money that the NIC is giving, they're giving enough money to demo the building and the leftovers to put the trail in? Is that kind of the way it works? And then we maintain it?
Yes.
And at the end, as I understand, at the end of it, they get it. They can get the dirt for tearing down the blue building and putting in the trail. So I don't see their big investment in that in the long term.
Well, there'll be, it's not just the trail, it's the trail and the landscaping and all the sprinkler and stuff like that. I mean, we didn't have a huge investment in it, right? It's maintaining to be public space of what we wanted it to be, right? We approved the Four Corners Master Plan, which has that with the trail through it and landscape there. So NIC just felt that they wanted to have control over that piece. So really, it's kind of the best of both worlds. We get it the way we want it to be, which is public open space, green space. They pay for it, and then they will, in the long run, if it works, if Congress transfers ownership, we can then transfer ownership with whatever restrictions we want to put on it.
I think that maybe the big picture is they just want the setbacks. I mean, that could be all it comes down to, is they have their plans for a building, and the building needs to be close to there. And because I remember at one of our meetings, someone expressed an idea that, they needed the room to expand over there, and they couldn't do it with the setbacks. So maybe that's all it comes down to.
I think part of it, too, is their assurance or their control that they know we're not going to do something crazy with. We go to Congress and say, hey, give it to us, and we want to put a pig farm in or something, so they've got some assurance that they're going to have a good neighbor. I think the alternative too, Woody, is that somebody's got, if we want that landscaping, want that buffer, want that trail, somebody's going to have to come up with the $200,000, or the city would, or someone else, and so the mayor nailed it.
Thanks.
Amy?
So NIC's contribution is roughly $378,000.
Yes.
What is the value of that piece of land, that parcel?
Well, that gets back to depend on what restrictions, and so right now, it's worth, you can't do anything with it, so it's just open space. So it would be, now if you could sell it, if you could develop it and sell it, then it would be valuable property. But with the recreation and public purposes restrictions, it's not really worth anything.
So if there was an act of Congress with limited restrictions, have we done an evaluation on how much the land would be at that, if that was to happen?
No, I don't know.
The lease would be increased, though. I mean, we got the cheapest bottom lease for that thing. And if you wanted to go with the other, do commercial development, whatever in there, then we'd be paying a heck of a lot more for
Fair
that lease.
market.
You'd have to pay fair market
Right.
value.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I would just, it seems like it makes a lot of sense to kind of in each direction. And I guess what I'd say is the real bonus thing is right now, I mean, all of those nice improvements that have been done down there, and then it's like we've still got this big old industrial warehouse kind of plunked down in what could be nice park. So I guess I see that as the real bonus if we're going to, too bad, maybe you can salvage the metal or something, but otherwise to have that open. When you look at some of those areas down around the park and stuff now and where they're, boy, the open vista and everything, so, I mean, that is kind of the last, it just sticks out like a sore thumb from my point of view. So if this will help that go away, that's good, so.
Any other discussion?
Call for the question.
So we've got a motion and a second. Roll call, please, Renata.
Evans,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
McEvers,
Yes.
Gookin,
Yeah.
English,
Yes.
Eddinger.
Yep.
Motion carried. Thank you, Mike. Now we'll move on to an agreement with JUB Engineers for construction, engineering, and inspection services during the Government Way Hanley Avenue to Prairie Avenue project. Chris Bosley.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thanks for having me up here tonight. The reason why I'm before you is to get an agreement approved for the construction, engineering, and inspection services from JUB Engineers for the Government Way project, Hanley to Prairie, which has been a long time coming, and we're excited to get this kicked off on hopefully April 2nd. That's when the contractor wants to start this. So I will stand for any questions you have about that.
Questions for Chris? Woody?
Chris, was JUB the guys that did the design?
No, Welch Comer Engineers did the design.
Okay, so we're spreading it around?
Correct.
Thanks.
Any other questions for Chris? If no questions, we'd be looking for council
Mr.
action.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve Resolution 18-008, approving the agreement with JUB Engineers, Inc. for construction, engineering, and inspection services during the Government Way Hanley to Prairie Avenue project.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please, Renata.
Miller,
Yes.
McEvers,
Yes.
Gookin.
Yep.
English,
Yes.
Eddinger,
Yes.
Evans.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Now, we'll move on to authorization for grant submittal to the Idaho Office of Highway Safety for traffic DUI enforcement funding. And we have Chief White.
Well, good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm obviously not Lee Brainerd, like the agenda said. It was his wife's birthday, so I told him he had to take her out.
Smart guy.
Keeps me out of trouble and him out of trouble.
These are the type of orders you give.
Right. Good for everybody. About 2 weeks ago, members of our traffic team came and spoke to me about an issue that they had identified with regards to DUI offenses, the number of DUI calls we have, the blood alcohol content of some of our DUI offenders, and more specifically, the collisions related to driving while under the influence of alcohol or other intoxicating substances. And with that, they also came with a solution, and so that's what I bring before you tonight. I apologize for the tight timeline on this, but as it turns out, the grant that I'm seeking permission to apply for actually closes on Thursday, and so that's why we didn't go through the normal process. However, there are a couple things that are slightly different than the staff report that you received, and so I'll point those out as we go through, specifically relating to the timeline of the grant. So what we're looking for is permission to apply for funding through for the percentage of one officer's salary and wages through the Idaho Office of Highway Safety grant. This position would work exclusively doing DUI enforcement. The grant timelines have changed a little bit from when we wrote this thing, but the grant would actually take effect on October 1st of this year. However, we would find out if we were awarded the grant in as early as March. So we'll find out fairly early, but we'll have a number of months to plan for this for the next budget year. Currently, our traffic team has 4 dedicated people for traffic enforcement. Their duties are predominantly now in the area of collision reduction, education, and enforcement based on complaints and things of that nature. So on a very regular basis, usually weekly, our crime analysis team takes a look at the collisions that we've had throughout the city and gives information to our traffic team, and that's where they base some of their enforcement efforts. We also get some complaints, and that's where we spend some of our enforcement efforts. And there are some areas that are historically problematic for us in terms of collisions and things like that, and so that is where our traffic team spends a lot of their time. We do some DUI enforcement, however, we don't have anybody dedicated to just doing DUI enforcement, which by some of the statistics that I'm about to go over, I think we can make a case that we can definitely use one. So in 2017, we had a total of 678 calls for service related to DUI offenses. Not all those were DUI, some of them just appeared to be DUI because they're texting while driving or something like that, or it turned out to be something unrelated. However, we did have a total of 388 DUI arrests in our city. The average blood alcohol content, as you see there, was 0.178, which is extremely high. We had one DUI arrest last year that was 0.35. I'm not sure, for me, that would be coma. I'm in the hospital, probably dead. For most people, I'm not sure how you function at a 3.5, and apparently that person didn't because they were ultimately arrested for DUI. But we do have a very high BAC level of the DUI offenders that we contact. 22% of the individuals arrested refused to cooperate with evidentiary testing. As you will recall, council approved a phlebotomy program some months back. However, the restrictions on when we would seek a search warrant under those are fairly limited. So not everybody gets a blood test. We did have, as it reads up there, 84 people with the blood alcohol content of over 2.0, which is over 2.5 times the legal limit, and we had 66 motor vehicle crashes in which alcohol was a factor. In 2016, the number was fairly consistent. We had 68 impaired driving related crashes. And there was a report that I don't know if you saw it or not several months back that the CDC made some comments regarding Coeur d'Alene and alcohol. I would tell you that has some huge problems with the information contained within that study because they don't quantify a lot of their data. They don't even talk about what if it's per capita or the population of the city or the number of arrests or the number of incidences or whatever. But they do talk about a 38.3% alcohol-related fatal crash rate. It's also not clear in that study if this is all in Kootenai County or if it's just in Coeur d'Alene, but I wanted to just briefly touch on it in case you happened to see that report a couple months ago. I will tell you, though, from my perspective, it did not factor into our decision-making to seek your approval to apply for this grant at all. The goals of this officer, if approved and funded, will be to reduce the total number of impaired driving offenses as well as impaired driving crashes in the city of Coeur d'Alene. We're going to do that through a number of different ways, predominantly through education, public awareness, but also through proactive DUI enforcement, some selective patrols, and then participation in some regional events to reduce the incidence of DUI. The financial impact, and talking with our city administrator, really what we're hoping to do is if we are successful in our application for the grant, we would, like I said, receive notification that we're successful in the next, say, 6 weeks or so, and then the funding would actually kick in October 1st. It's our intent through over the next 8 months to realize savings through vacancy savings and things like that in our current budget to fund the $23,000 that would be required for the first year, in addition to the vehicle that this person would need to drive. It's kind of hard to have a DUI officer on foot patrol, so we do have to get a vehicle for him. And really, our patrol fleet doesn't have the flexibility right now to remove a car from the patrol fleet and move them just over to DUI. Right now, for instance, we only have a total of 3 pool cars when other cars go down, and they go down for just routine maintenance on a very regular basis. So we don't have that sort of flexibility. So in brief, the grant funds 75% of the officer's wages and benefits and also some overtime and training in the first year, 50% the second year, and 25% the third year. Like the grant that you approved in 2016, we have to reapply every year. However, once you're approved for the grant the first year, the likelihood of getting approved the next 2 years is very, very good. So our first year grant application would be for a total of $107,000 from the funding through the grant, and our matching funds would be $23,000. So with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Questions for Chief White? Kiki?
So is this going to be a new hire, or are you looking for somebody, so it'll be somebody brand new who will go through this, who's done this before?
Yes, ma'am. And that's part of the benefits of not getting the funding, and I know it sounds horrible, but not getting the funding until October 1st. Now we have time to plan. So when this new grant position kicks in, we would transfer somebody from our existing patrol cadre or wherever in the department, whoever tests into that position, into the traffic division, and we would backfill them with a new hire.
And is this dealing with other substances besides alcohol, as far as, this is talking about percentages of alcohol and DUI, but are we dealing with other substance abuse issues too?
Yes, ma'am. We're anticipating that the person who would apply for this or get selected for this position would also go through drug recognition training, and so they become really an expert in all things driving under the influence, whether it's marijuana, prescription pills, or alcohol.
Ron?
Where's this money going to come from?
It comes through the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. It's a pass-through grant from the feds through the Idaho Office of Highway Safety. I'm sorry, the extra $23,000, was that your question?
Yeah.
Okay, so right now I'm currently holding basically 2.5 vacancies. I have one officer vacancy. He can't attend the academy until January. So I'm holding that one, although he's already been offered and accepted the position. That one will remain vacant for several months. I also have 1.5 civilian positions that are vacant at this time that we're in the process of filling, and we hope to have them filled soon, but we can realize savings over the next couple of months that we would use to make up that $23,000.
Other questions for Chief White? Woody?
Chief, I gotta ask, does a police car really cost $68,000?
It really does. I know it's horrible, isn't it? Really, the car itself is about $25,000 is all for the SUV. It's all the stuff we put in it, the computers and the e-ticket machines and the camera systems. And you know, we've looked at it over the past several years to see what pieces of equipment we can remove from the cars to make them cheaper. And one of the first things that came to mind was the video cameras in the cars, because we all have video cameras on our uniforms. However, there's been a number of cases here recently where officers were exonerated, or we were able to do some sort of investigation based on the video camera on the vehicle and not on the officer's body. And so I'm really reluctant to remove that piece of equipment. I think it even if it helps us in 1 or 2 instances throughout the year, it's worth its money. The computer systems that go in there, there's a whole trunk-mounted unit that has to talk back and forth with Central and that sort of thing on a very regular basis, and it's all pretty expensive. And I was just in the Idaho Chiefs of Police Conference last week down in Boise, and I talked to some other police chiefs about what they're paying for patrol cars, and I was talking with Jeff Levy, and it's consistent. They're paying about the same thing.
So that doesn't count the big guns that are mounted in there and all that, no?
That's fully outfitted, yes, sir.
Okay. Thanks.
Chief, will this car have any special designation when you see it driving down the street? Will it look just like a normal PD vehicle?
It's going to look just like one of our other traffic SUVs, yes, sir.
Okay. Any other questions for Chief White? If not, we'd be looking for council action.
I would make a motion to authorize the grant submittal to the Idaho Office of Highway Safety for traffic DUI enforcement officer funding.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Chief. Thank you. Now we will move on to some business that we need to do to take care of some past things that we have already seen. So this is the annexation of the plus or minus 4.63 acres from County Agricultural to City C-17 for parcel known as 7845 North Ramsey Road.
Mr. Mayor, I would move to approve Resolution 18009, which approves an annexation agreement with the estate of Marvin Paul Keogh for plus or minus 4.63 acres of county agriculture to City C-17 for a parcel commonly known as 7845 North Ramsey Road.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
McEvers?
Yes.
Gookin?
Yep.
English?
Yes.
Eddinger?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Motion to dispense with the rule and read Council Bill 181000 once by title only.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on that? Renata, if you could read the title, please.
Council Bill Number 18-1000, An ordinance annexing to and declaring to be a part of the City of Coeur d'Alene, Kootenai County, Idaho, specifically describe portions of Section 27, Township 51, North, Range 4, West, Boise Meridian. Zoning such specifically described property hereby annexed, repealing all ordinances and parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing a severability clause, providing for the publication of a summary of this ordinance and an effective date hereof.
Roll call, please.
Gookin?
Aye.
English?
Yes.
Eddinger?
Yep.
Evans?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
McEvers?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Motion to adopt Council Bill 18-1000.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please, Renata.
Gookin?
Yep.
English?
Yes.
Eddinger?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
McEvers?
Yes.
Motion carried. Now we will go on to the public hearing that we have tonight, and this is V 18-1, vacation of a portion of Lee Court right-of-way adjoining the southerly boundary of the adjusted Lot 4, Block 2, Moen subdivision. And Dennis Grant has a report for us.
All right, good evening, Mayor and Council. Up on this, So up on the screen there, we have a visual of what we're going to be talking about tonight. It's GVD Partners is the applicant, and the requested right-of-way was relinquished that we're going to be talking about. Well, let me just show you here on this right-of-way vacation exhibit in yellow. This is the area we're talking about in Winco. Winco, the grocery store, is up on top here, and then we have I-90 down below. So, anyway, the requested right-of-way was relinquished to the City of Coeur d'Alene through an agreement with the Idaho Transportation Department back in 2004. This went to Public Works here a few weeks ago and unanimously approved. The vacation of the requested right-of-way would not have any financial impact on the city and would add about 4.4 acres to the county tax roll. The purpose of this request is to realign the excess right-of-way to match the existing public improvements. All utilities are existing and in place, and there is no foreseeable use for this additional right-of-way. Therefore, the vacation of this portion of right-of-way adjoining this parcel would not impact the city and would be a benefit to the property owner. We sent out 9 certified mailings and had 0 responses back. Therefore, staff recommends to the City Council to approve the vacation action per Idaho Code Section 50-1306 and to vacate the property to the applicant, GVD Partners LP.
Questions for Dennis? Woody?
Dennis, so the history behind this giant, it looks giant. It looks like a huge honking piece of property that we're letting go of. That is original right-of-way for I-90, is that correct?
Back in the day, I don't know what the date was, when that off-ramp came through there, that's where that was. That's correct. And then, where Lee Court is, that's where the off-ramp was. And then Idaho Department of Transportation redid that whole intersection, new bridge and everything, and made a cul-de-sac out of that Lee Court, or that old off-ramp.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Dennis? Dennis, I just wanted to bring up, I had a phone call from someone that just wanted to make sure that this person was familiar with this site, and that at one time, somewhere near there, that was used for a garbage dumping area.
Yeah.
And I had talked with Sam a little bit about that, and they're getting the land for no cost, but I don't know if the city needs to have, maybe this would be a question for Mike, whether the city needs any type of hold harmless agreement. I mean, they're getting this for nothing. It's not like they could sue the city because we gave it to them for nothing. But, and I don't know that there's any buried garbage issues at all, but should we cover ourselves? Was that ever come up?
My understanding is that this area isn't where the dump was, or is, but the property owner is, whatever the use is going to be in the future, has said that they will accommodate either by the use of putting a parking lot over that area. Apparently 8 years ago, there has been some testing done, And then also, if there is a building over portion, or over part of that, it'll be designed however it's designed to accommodate that.
So it can't come back to the city in any way?
Well, I don't, when we vacate property, I don't think we have the ability, we either vacate it or we don't. And I think our only liability would be if we put something there at some point in time in the past. So, anybody can sue you at any time, but I don't think we would have any liability unless we had put something there. And this was looked at a number of years ago. I think Dennis is correct, and most of the dump is more in the central part of that property or where the Cracker Barrel area is, so.
Okay. So we're good then? Yeah, all right.
There's a larger picture if you'd like to look at it.
Yeah.
That was one I was going to show you first, but the other one popped up, so.
Yeah. All right, anything for Dennis? All right, thank you. This is a public hearing, so I will, at this time, open public testimony or public comment. I have just one name on the list. Mike Paul is in favor of the project, but does not wish to testify. Anyone else in the audience wish to testify in regards to this matter? If not, I will close the public testimony and look for council action.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to dispense with the rule and read Council Bill 18-1001.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
Is that good by title only?
Yeah, good
All
by
right.
title only,
Yeah.
thanks.
Sure.
Keeping them on their toes.
Because otherwise, she has to read the whole thing.
She already does, right?
Renata, if you could read the title, please.
Council Bill Number 18-1001, an ordinance of the City of Coeur d'Alene, Kootenai County, Idaho, vacating a portion of the Lee Court right-of-way, generally described as a parcel of land adjoining the southerly boundary of the adjusted Lot 4, Block 2 of the Moen subdivision to the City of Coeur d'Alene plat, located in the southwest quarter of Section 2, Township 50 North, Range 4 West, Boise Meridian, City of Coeur d'Alene, Kootenai County, Idaho, repealing all ordinances and parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing a severability clause, and providing for the publication of a summary of this ordinance and an effective date hereof.
Roll call, please.
English?
Yes.
Eddinger?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
McEvers?
Yes.
Gookin?
Aye.
Move to adopt Council Bill 18-1001.
Second?
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
English?
Yes.
Eddinger?
Yep.
Evans?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
McEvers?
Yes.
Gookin?
Yes.
Motion carried. Before we adjourned into executive session, I just wanted to acknowledge that is my granddaughter's one-year-old birthday today, but it's also her grandmother, my wife's Marie's birthday today as well. Quinn is 1, Marie is older than 1. So I just wanted to
Very
wish
diplomatic.
both of them a happy birthday, and now we can move into executive session.
I'd make a motion that we move into executive session pursuant to Idaho Code 74-206 to acquire interest in real property which is not owned by a public agency.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are in executive session. Thank you, everyone.